Hello and welcome to the Skating Lesson, the place where we love figure skating. I'm Dave Lees.
Oh, we do love figure skating, Dave Lees. I'm Jonathan Byer.
Yes, and welcome back to another edition of This and That, where we break down the skating of the week with Japan Open and the Finlandia Trophy. So there was a lot of confetti this week, Jonathan, in Finland. They love their figure skating. They're very happy.
Sometimes it gets on the ice during your short dance or your rhythm dance, and it's a problem. But
so it happened about 2 to 3 times during this competition. So I tend to think that when we get into other skaters that had random errors, we're just going to blame the confetti because you know that is going to be the official story.
Even though they were competing in Japan at the time, we're going to be like the confetti in Finland really made that not possible for them.
So I think there are 2 reasons for the confetti. Obviously, they're getting the Grand Prix, and there was synchro that was happening at this event. And you know those synchro girls and their confetti, they're just tossing it everywhere. Team Surprise was like, bye. In synchro,
and it's intriguing though because the facility seems very nice. The ice looked very good. The sound was very good, but it was like, oh, okay, you're going to get your whole Grand Prix, but nobody seems to really be coming out.
I know. Even with
so it's an intriguing choice because France always had the people. It was just like, can they pay the rent on the building that day? I don't know, but
well, you know now. The Finland girls, a couple, like they had one that was better than America. So that's, the U.S.
Vivica or whatever,
was not in fine form here. But you have a new husband this week. You have fallen in love with Ivan Bukin, who seems to have spent all of his time since not competing at the Olympics training his
doing his hair. Oh.
I was going to mark on their improvement, but talk about the hair. What did you like about it?
Oh my God. They have always been actually my favorite of the Russian ice dancers. Like, I know they were always pushing Bobrova and Solovyev and like these kinds of things. And we were always pretending some of the new partnerships were working, but they have like kind of slowly and steadily just kind of been working. And now their sits and twizzles are like very cool and these sorts of things. The energy they brought to that short dance, like from the opening moves where they are making enormous gestures in like quiet places in the music, and it is so cool, and they are both committed like 8,000%. And just to be like that guy, I mean, and the hair and the sheerness and like the energy he had in like the opening kick and like that huge expansive chest thing, I was all about it. I loved their pattern.
Yes, their pattern.
As Dave has been honing me in on the pattern assessment.
So what I thought about them was interesting is that they had obviously the interruption in the middle of the program, and they had to they thought that they were gonna start again, and they were in the pose, and then they were in the pose, and then they were waiting, and then they were starting to get some
well, it's a fatiguing pose, yes. You know, like his arms were up and they were fully extended, and then you could it might have been a glimpse into what training is like, because he was getting respectfully but a little clearly ready for this to get moving.
She was too. They both
yeah.
But how could you not? Because you're first of all, you're doing a tango, you're being spicy, you're trying to be in character, and you're waiting to go, and they're not really giving you like a 5, 4, 3, 2, you're just kind of waiting, when is the music gonna start?
Right.
Hello,
right.
Girls.
And the momentum of that, and they are so committed to the character of this dance that it was a huge it was actually so impressive to then see them go right back in with the same level of intensity. I'm sorry, I think they are my favorite ice dance team so far this year.
So I think they have the strongest pattern. Maddie and Zach have a very strong pattern as well. But I think when you start to look into it, they have quite a strong vehicle for them. Obviously, they're starting. Their first pancake is a little bit later than the other teams, but it seems to have really worked for them to their advantage.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's incredible. And the music selections were unexpected. And then at first you're like, is that Edith Piaf? But then she's actually singing the story of Carmen in a weird twist. So all of this kind of stuff, it's the same stuff, but a unique approach. And again, for me, it's just that energy exploding out of their bodies and their faces, and their deportment looks better than ever. Their posture looks incredible. I don't know. I'm a huge fan of this rhythm dance.
Her limbs looked much better than the past, because in the past she's had problems with her extension and with her lines. and it looked.
But
so
she was matching him a bit. Like he was maybe the more naturally, well placed skater, but she wasn't. As we will talk about in the pairs here, sometimes like that inequality, I can't. It's a real problem to watch, and I do not experience this. She really upped her level, and I think big things are in store for them, and I hope whatever it is that the Russian Federation may or may not be able to help, that as now really the prominent team, that they can help get some support that way.
So the other thing that's interesting is that their coaches a lot of the junior teams from Russia, so it'll be interesting to see how that works its way into the future. I also, their sit-spin twizzles are quite good. There is one little mark where it seems like they could get a little more distance. Obviously, they're doing something that's more difficult. And then I thought on one of their other sets of the twizzles, they have to be very careful that they don't get it called a spin. But it looked good enough, But that's the one thing to look at when you're doing something that's in a sit-spin position, that you're traveling enough. But then it's so much more difficult.
And it would be a mistake to try to penalize them if there was some sort of specialist that was going to try to rule it as like a traveling spin or something, because it's a big deal that they are taking a unique approach to it. I mean, they always have, so we know to expect it from them. But like, if they are ever penalized for it, I think would dissuade anyone from trying anything ever again. So I hope that they never run into that issue. And remember, when we were talking about certain footwork sequences, you would always point out that Tessa and Scott last year did a lot more with multi-directional skating and those, and certain step sequences and things like that. And they're really incorporating a lot of 3 dimensions and multi-directional and asymmetry and stuff like that. That just kind of brings it to a level of sophisticated in the choreography that some of the other pairs seem more dance teams seem more formulaic in their construction of those moments.
Well, you also have to put, they're obviously the top team at their rink, right? So Maddie and Zach are at the one thing, like Marie-France is great, but at this point we're seeing they have so many teams, they have so many new teams, and she has the Thank You Canada tour. I mean, how much time are we spending on each person to be unique and different when we have like 15 teams to choreograph for? I mean, that can burn out any team. And we've seen, Igor has their phase, Marina has her phase, and then we're seeing that we start to see patterns and, similar choreography. So it's interesting to see how it all comes in. I think now that Marie-France is probably done with the tour, we're going to see her whip some of these teams into shape. I thought Smart and Diaz. So Olivia looks much more confident just this season. Like, she's really selling it, especially in the rhythm dance. The one, I don't really care for their Beatles free dance, but one thing I really noticed, though, is that when you're looking at the GOE on the pattern of the top teams, and I'm going to do a video on the pattern so we can kind of discuss
I
the
loved
legs.
your video on the GOE. Come on. Okay.
Thank you. But what... their leg lines really do not match, and they're still new-ish together. This is their 3rd season, but it's not their first time competing this dance, so the expectations start to be more. And I just remember that he had problems when I saw them train that time. He could not get his leg up on the camel spin, and then it was never up on the camel spin all season. He never matches her extension. She even brings her leg down, where she will extend her leg, but extend it more down so that he can match her, and he still doesn't. So it's just one of those nails on a chalkboard things when you start to really look at what the difference is between the top 5 teams, the top 10 teams. That's the area where they really seem to struggle.
Or quite frankly, the top team in Spain.
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, I enjoy him, and they're giving her, they're setting her up for success with this kind of choreography in the rhythm dance. These clean, more posy, perhaps. Yeah. And she does that well. But I know it's choreographed in, but even in the beginning, you see him physically running to catch up with her.
Yeah.
There's inevitable size issues that no program can really help when you have to follow the pattern, especially coming off of Stepanova and Buchan, where you would see their legs kick together and they were literally together. that kind of next level detail is really missing from that team. And I guess I just don't know if that's coming.
Yeah, I'm not sure. There's things.
It's hard for me to tell with dance. Like, you know, when you'll talk about certain junior skaters, it's clear like, oh, but this will totally fix itself with time. Or you're like, that one's going to be a harder thing to fix. This may be as good as it gets. And with dance, I'm not quite sure what is capable of changing when they have kind of this limitation.
Yeah, I don't know much about each of them as people or anything like that. So they're not like this, been able in the U.S. for 10 years, so we can really kind of see what's coming in the future. So I don't know.
I feel like they are still number 2 in Spain.
Yeah, I mean, Sara Hurtado was supposed to compete here. She has an abdominal tear or pull, hopefully a pull, not a tear. But, that can keep you out for a little bit, and there's not much that you can do because skating is a lot of abs for balance. So,
right.
And then Hawaii and Baker also had to withdraw because they're still getting over the effects of a concussion. Last I heard that they are training like full run-throughs now, or sections and full run-throughs, but it just wasn't enough time to get back for here. So this was supposed to be one of the most exciting anticipated dance events, and we'll have to wait until...
Well, for me, it was just for him.
And the confetti. You were throwing it all for him.
That was me throwing confetti through the screen, and they're like, now we have to stop. And I was like, great, more FaceTime with Buchan and Stefano.
Yes. Their faces looked beautiful during that time. It was a nice shot of them. They looked kind of pissy and tango-ish, so we'll remember it.
I loved it. They just hit it. The aesthetic was not a caricature of this rhythm. It was a complete embodiment of it. And just a big fan.
And loved her costume. And his. But hers especially. Mm-hmm. I thought it worked well with her leg line. And she reminded me of like those old leggy Russian ice dancers, even though they're not as tall. But she was giving... But
that we loved. And again, to me, I've mentioned this several times, those opening 5 to 10 seconds really can tell the tale on, to me, the assessment of your quality in artistry. And from the beginning pose and to those immediate steps, even before they really get started, I'm like, I'm in. I give you all the points, all of them. Here, take them right now. I haven't even seen you do anything, required yet, and I'm already here for it. So,
well, moving from the dancing pairs to the actual pairs, I feel good, da-na-na-na. Jonathan.
Of all things coming off of the heels of that Olympic season, I was like, you don't feel good because you don't like this type of music. And as someone mentioned, in the Oksana Bayul, Victor Petrenko Olympic exhibition costume tribute.
Yes. So I have a question, because like circa 1993, 1994, the I Feel Good was in a commercial. Was it for cotton? Was it for... It was like for something like cotton or something like wearing, like the... I don't know, because... So I did in my boys dance class that I've referenced from time to time, we did a program...
You're just going to drop that in there, Dave?
To Whoomp There It Is, and randomly at the end it went into I Feel Good, and like I was like yay tall, and they lifted me at the... I'll have to find a video of this, but at the end it goes wow, and I was on someone lifted me on their shoulders who was like 6 years older, and like the big moment was that I went like wow, right on the beat.
Well, I wish you hadn't have said that, because now next year's free program is going to be To Whoomp There It Is.
I still know those words, I'm telling you. Okay. Upside down and inside out. I'm going to show you folks what it's all about. All right. So.
Okay.
Okay. Yes. All right. So, when you have two stone-faced people, all right, that just are not, maybe they're emotive in real life, but you put them on the ice and they get very serious looking.
It's not a showman kind of energy that they give you. I believe they can emote most likely to something more subdued and classical, like maybe they did in the rock
program. Like maybe they should be doing the 9/11 tribute or the Schindler's List, and they could have the appropriate solemnity for the occasion.
Oh well, here's the thing. If you, Dave, if you're managing a team and the team struggles with this kind of like pizzazz energy, I would think at some points you're like, okay, in order to remedy this, we're going to push them that way. But then at some point you're kind of like, but why are we doing that? Let's just give in and give them what they'll do well.
So, especially at this point in their careers, we've
They
already
are not
given
juniors. Yeah.
we've already given Natalie Portman the ecstasy to see if she can become the Black Swan. They don't seem like they can become the Black Swan. So I kind of think you have to just go with what's going to work. The thing is that they look like they were put together in a lab, that they have like perfect lines, perfect matching, and yet they cannot get it together at all. But there doesn't seem to be much improvement. I mean, we're making the same mistakes.
It's so easy for them to just jump ship. Mm-hmm. Like the minute something goes wrong, like her with those, like in the free, I'm talking about the 2 single toe loops. From that moment, I mean, it looked like almost she wasn't even trying, and the air goes out. And then that ridiculous lift moment that could have been very scary, where her legs were already behind his hand. And then even the final pose, like you can tell they were just like, forget it, whatever. And I was just like, it blows my mind that we've seen them in several occasions just give up.
So that makes me think that they stopped the program, or that's the difference when Frank Carroll is so that you never stop the program is his big thing, because are they not doing that every day? Like, is this something where they would stop after they mess the combination and go back? That's the kind of thing where they don't learn how to refocus.
Keep going. Yeah, it's as if like something very strange happened, and they're almost like, well, what do we do now? I guess I just won't do any of my jumps or lifts or spins properly for the rest of the program. And you're like, what? It's so weird because all the ingredients are there. Even if it's not magic, just by having those ingredients, and if they just came out with like kind of a more traditional thing and they just kind of did the bare minimum, they'd constantly be up there.
Also, we lowered the value of the throws, so they don't have to go for the quad anymore, right? How many times are they going to land them on 2 feet? Like, not just like a little Oksana Bayul 2 foot where you tap the toe down for a little bit of a assist. I mean, they land like shoe boxes, like two, like we're sticking the vault. I mean, they land 2 feet.
Well, and the landing on one of the throws in the long looked painful because she kind of landed like it felt like it dislodged her even, and it was one of those kinds of, even though she didn't fall, I audibly was like, like it literally looked painful, the thud.
So some of it is in the throw, and it looks like the way he launches her. I mean, she goes straight up, but she goes straight up and down.
The trajectory is missing. Yeah. Oh, in your GOE, we're getting the height. We are not getting the length.
You loved that GOE video.
I do.
Oh, wow.
I look forward with great anticipation to the one on the rhythm dance. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
But you know what else is different? Like in a world, okay. It's right now, twists seem harder than they've ever seemed before, because we are seeing in this crop several people with twist issues. So the fact that their twist does have that kind of height right now, Alexa and Chris and Tarasov and Morozov, they're the only 2 teams that are really bringing us a quality twist in an exciting way. The rest, you're kind of like, wow, these are some really tough twists, and I don't remember on a senior level this kind of many problematic twists. So at least it is nice to see that off the get-go with them.
I'm like one of the remaining powerful that twists. Our friends from China seem like they will have no issue coming back and being near the top of the heap as soon as they're healed and ready to go. They are in. There's no danger of any of these teams really being able to compete with them, and everyone will have sat through months of horrible skating that they'll be so thankful when they come back that we'll just give them all the points.
The indicator that it's not quite a fit, go back to the footwork in the free and watch his forearms and hands. And you see sometimes he's being told to do like jazz hands, and he's like reluctantly doing it. And sometimes they're totally like dead in energy, because in those moments is when you see the program missing. If you hone into their hands in the step sequence, you're kind of like, okay, so you guys don't like.
I almost get the vibe that they spend all of their time on the elements, and like the program is like that complete afterthought, the complete like last thing they worry about.
But then you think they'd go for the elements. That's the confusing disconnect for me.
It's a conundrum with them.
Yeah.
And what's happening with Nina? Is she coming back? Is she still
Whoa,
overseeing.
we got quite an eyeful of Maxim sitting out there. I was like, oh gosh, it's like a whole thing with a velvet tracksuit and like kind of funky hair, and it looked like maybe he had like a special brownie beforehand or something. And I was like, okay,
this apparently it is
not Nina.
It is Putin's birthday today, so there is a lot to celebrate. You know, he's doing a wonderful job managing Russia and the United States. So I think that
he's helping team medalists for Olympics. Yeah, okay.
So I think Maxim was just a little excited. I think it was his.
And he even, it was interesting, but like, you wonder when a former competitor of yours is now suddenly giving you the advice. Like, you saw him discussing, like, oh, the lift went up, the lift didn't go out. And it was like, well, thanks, like, Holly hindsight. Like, what about the prep into that? Like, what was the cause? We don't need your commentary on the effect. We know what the effect was. We need the cause, but okay.
So for our Russian friends, was that just an imitation of a Voloshyzhar dress, or was that like a Voloshyzhar exhibition dress or dress that she had? Because it's the same cut and style as Voloshyzhar's program where we Jesus Christ Superstar, and
different.
And it looks like the same dress. Did she have a white version? I'm forgetting at this point. I know that they wore the yellow at the Olympics, but it looks exactly the same. It looks wonderful. Maybe not the right color for Evgenia Tarasova, but it looks.
And they're beautiful people. I mean, they're a very aesthetically pleasing couple and have these great lines. And unfortunately, I think it was the free or the short where he had like kind of a breezy black shirt, and unfortunately it detracted from me seeing his line. It was a bit bulky, so some of those like beautiful positions I'd missed because of the costume. How silly, you know what I mean?
Well, the costume, the short was that distracting disco type element that we were doing.
Oh, yes, of course, the Victor and Oksana thing. Yes. So, yes, for sure, it was in the free. That it was like, I understood they were trying to go for flowy, like this Morgan Cypre, like kind of thing, and it didn't really work. So.
Morgan Cypre. Oh, okay, Jonathan. Okay. All right, so...
Well, I love him, too. Like, I must have had a really lonely week this week, because, like, and then I would, like, pour myself a cocktail at the end of the day, watch some skating, and I was like, wow, I need to stop watching all these Piers men. Okay.
True crime, Jonathan, true crime. It'll get you through any night. A good white lady murdered. All right.
Okay.
So, More Towers and Marinero winning the free skate here, still second overall. Mm-hmm. They're kind of at this point in their careers where they're now the number one in Canada, and I feel like it was probably easier for them when they were climbing rather than, expected to be the number one team. They do look better. There are some mistakes that we don't expect. We don't really expect her to miss a throw. Like at this point.
Well, it was so interesting. Almost going into the throw, I was like, wait, is she doing like a sit spin? Like slower than I was used to. So I was kind of like, is this a variation? And then she toppled. So I had a feeling it wasn't really intended.
Well, they do a lot of, those Julie Marcotte little entrances into the throw, but again, the throw has to be the successful point. Right. I think the free skate is good. It's that soft rock kind of thing we have going on. You could tell she really likes the rhythm change, and it's fun. I'm just at this point where when they do the double axel Euler triple Salchow,
which was under rotated on this one.
Yeah. And we see them, they keep doing it in practice, they keep going for it. Are they getting more successful with it? That's kind of my question. Like, at what point is it worth it? At what point do you go back to the drawing board? Because it just continues to be such a struggle for them to move forward. So
they're looking for a wow element, and it is a unique idea, but it does seem like just the nature of it. Like when Sam Cesario always used to do that triple loop in the short program, and you were like, you're kind of setting yourself up to be nitpicked on this. Yeah. So I don't know why you keep doing it, but
yeah, I thought with them the twist is quite low. I mean, they could visit Delilah and work on that. It seems like in Montreal they do not really.
Well, but then maybe Delilah would steal that.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I just think we could visit Delilah for a couple of weeks and work on it, and she could put it on Instagram.
Because what they do is like, because how I was saying, like, I'm not used to seeing so many twists have these kinds of issues. But likewise, so many of these early programs have had a lot of synchronization problems with the spins. And it was nice to see their spins like right in line, because again, you seem like that should be like the easy thing for people who have been skating together for a few seasons. Like,
their twist kind of rolls across is the one thing. You know, it's kind of like a stop, drop, and roll situation from Fire Prevention Week, which is very important. The other thing is, I think that
what were those things that, sorry, Dave, I keep interrupting. What was that thing that Carruthers used to do? They would like put her up and then she'd twist. It was like a hydrant lift into like a roll, some kind of like.
Yes.
We should go back and look at it. In Sarajevo, it was like she would go up and then she would do kind of like this sideways twist and roll across him. And it's totally like what they're doing.
Where is Kitty? Kitty, come on and explain this to us. Okay.
I know, I miss Kitty.
So the other thing I was going to ask, what I think is that you can notice that they really do work with Julie Marcotte once a week to twice a week, because they do have a much better performance quality over time. Even when the music choices I know are not your favorite for this team, they do believe in it. And whereas you could tell that Taras and Morozov really don't spend a lot of time on the program, whether you like the program or you think or you're indifferent to it, they really do spend a lot of time on their performance, on their faces. I mean, they really do give you, they really are trying on the components, and they really are working towards it. Especially Kirsten, you could tell really bonds with Julie, and I think that you can appreciate that. You know, when you look at these teams, they have a program that's a real program from beginning to end. They work on it, they try to improve it. Whereas when you see kind of Tara and Danny do the Swan Lake, like it goes in and out of the Swan, and you see Taras Morozov where it's kind of an afterthought, you could tell that they really do the detail work, even if it's not always, if some of the elements aren't always successful, the program is still there. And I think I really do appreciate that. And I notice it. So, but Tara and Danny, Jonathan, at this point,
I have so many things to say.
Okay.
Dave, if you were a pair, who would you get your choreography from?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot here.
Now, I'm not saying who would you send Danny and Tara to or any particular thing, but if I was a pair person right now, I really think that despite the way they came across in this particular event, I think those Shaylin programs are fresh. Yeah. I was completely riveted by the short. When they came out in the outfits, I was like, "You've been Delilah." You know what I mean? Like, I was like, maybe they got the costumes before then, but there was an aesthetic that I was like, "Huh." But the program, I went back and rewatched it because I was like, it's so different than all the other things. In the same way, Benoit doing Alexa and Chris, I'm at least interested because all of these things, it's a new vocabulary in the choreography. And the Shaylin stuff, like, I do believe that the Swan Lake ingredients given to the right pair would absolutely be an important program of the season. And I think the short program has great potential in choreographic terms. I think with this particular pair, you have someone who I think is absolutely world class and someone who really is throwing the dynamic off entirely. So unfortunately, I don't see these two programs reaching the success they could, but I am obsessed with Shay's fresh, innovative approach to pairs, and I hope that more pairs use her. Like some of the Ashley programs, I mean, we can debate how much was actually the program that was given to her, but some of it was like a little like, yeah, that looks like a Shay short program for a woman, a ladies program or whatever. But this work in the pairs, I really commend her on it. I think it was great stuff. I just think it's never going to happen with this current partnership.
So, I mean, I don't think the partnership is going anywhere, although Delilah has split up many a team. But it looks like they're still in the honeymoon phase with Delilah, because the big thing is that, I mean, they didn't get any points for the death spiral, Jonathan, which at this point is really
absurd.
I mean, you're a top team at this level. That was a big mistake. and you're not sure, like, is it the training, like what, and I think every summer, I know she's had health issues, but they also haven't seemed to move forward, and they've also struggled on the Grand Prix every year, even when they are healthier. It's been a real struggle for them, and it seems like they do really well from nationals to March. Like, they're able to kind of, well, at least between nationals and four continents, this team really seems to find their peak
groove
every year in their groove. But in order to really maximize the second half of the season, for a team like Tara and Danny, they need to really hit their technical level and find a consistency in the fall. Like, on the Grand Prix, they need to start building a reputation of themselves, because if the U.S. is going to get more spots at the World Championships, or they're going to send two teams and then, earn the spots again, they really do need to have a team that's going to build a reputation during the fall. And what we're seeing is that a lot of these teams are underperforming on the fall. I think Deanna and Nate are getting closer. Ashley and Tim have had a pretty good senior B, but, they haven't always carried it throughout the season. And it's going to need to happen, because Alexa and Chris are really the only American team that have a solid reputation as being a top 12, top 14 team. And the rest of the teams are going to have to really start delivering, because it's the same problem year after year after year where...
And it's the sameness of it that ultimately makes one kind of lose a bit of hope that even a coaching change, and I know that these things take a long time, but like, you're kind of like, I just see limitations here. When Jenny got a lot of flack when she mentioned that someone like Alex Johnson, she was like, I see someone who cannot naturally jump, maybe, perhaps, but I'm looking at someone who's pure skating could be a national champion in ice dance. Like, the quality is so there. I looked at these two programs and I was like, I see a man who could be a world medalist. I see programs that could be on top of international podiums without fail, because they're so unique and interesting. And then I see, unfortunately, a problem. I see a problem. And I'm so drawn to him and the choreography. And then when I kind of notice what's happening over here, you're just kind of like, well, darn, if it weren't for this particular piece of the puzzle. And I hope that doesn't sound overly negative, but what I would be afraid of is that we're missing something really, something's getting in the way. And I almost wonder if Delilah is just like showcasing, like, we have two great programs here, we've got a great guy here, and there's one element that needs to be changed. And I wonder, and Danny's 27. Danny may not be interested in making that change at this point in the game.
So I just think the thing with Delilah, it'll be interesting to see what she does moving forward. I'm very curious, when Alexa was there, they were doing off ice with Delilah's son, Larry, and he owned like a CrossFit type gym. I don't think it was called CrossFit, and I went to that workout with Alexa, and that was, it really got her ripped. I'm curious, do Tara and Danny do that? I'm wondering, at this point in the partnership, I think when a team comes and you're Delilah, all of a sudden you're without a top team, and then you're building your staple back up, at what point do you really start to push them and push them harder? They're going to need more difficult side-by-side jumps. That was something that Alexa and Chris have struggled with. Tara and Danny have struggled with getting past, moving, away from just doing a double axel, and a double axel that usually has a hop before it. They did do a more difficult first jumping pass in the free with the Sao Cow. But, their jumps need to be bigger. They need to, make some improvements in that area if they're going to contend, for a national title. And I think with Alexa and Chris making so many changes, it's a time for a team like Tara and Danny to really make a move to try to win another national title, because now's the moment. You have a short window, and Alexa and Chris are making a lot of changes. They may not have the consistency by nationals. You need to go after it, and right now it doesn't look like they can, but they are also a team that pulls it together by nationals. So I'm really curious to see what happens. It just looks like the Grand Prix may be rough again.
And I'm curious, also the short program, like, something about it was very like cutting edge.
Yes.
It was like dun, 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 dun. But again, I think there are so many very cool moves in there. The entrances were cool. I hope that like they use Shea all the time, so I can just see more Shea pairs programs. But I'm curious, the real disconnect here in the throws, in the lifts, their final moves, it was like it's a charming approach to laugh it off, but kind of like, really, you guys? Like, come on.
Delilah was still laughing at this point. I was curious, will she laugh if this... I don't think she'll laugh if it happens on the Grand Prix. You know, like at that point. I think, look, they've made a lot of changes. They've had injuries. They're getting it back together. But at a certain point...
I'm just curious in the twist, because I see him physically now in the twist, release a little different, like do these sorts of things. And I'm just curious, my eye does not, as someone who has not been in a triple twist, and also in the throws, sometimes I have difficulty knowing, was it the release? Was it him or was it her? Because, you know, we were even talking to Megan about sometimes they would be warming up a jump and they'd or a throw, and if it wasn't going right, they had to figure out, was it Eric's release and turn or was it her position? And this is a team, I'm curious where that disconnect happens in the twists and in the throws.
Yeah. It's you know, that's the big question, I think, at this point. What I did notice is that they've spent a lot of time, obviously they went to Delilah originally for the twist, and they missed it in the free skate, landing on the wrong foot. And you just kind of think like, oh, like this is the one element that you should really be nailing at this point.
I suppose as you take it apart in the same way like some of Yevgenia's stuff, as you really deconstruct something to rebuild it, it probably gets really weird for a while. But
so it'll be interesting to see, I think, their trajectory, because we've given other teams a pass. Someone pointed out Alexa and Chris, you know, we really did give them, and I think we have to give Tara and Danny that same pass here. I think at least, you know what, the short program was refreshing. It was different, and it was definitely not very Delilah. They got that program before her, and she's let them keep it.
It was all Shay. Yeah, all Shay. I love it.
And Shay did do the free skate, so we'll see what happens. But let's move on. I know you want to talk about the men at Finland. We still have a lot to get to. So the men at Finland, it comes down to three men, Jonathan. It comes down to Kolyada, Aliev, and June. And I think the big thing that I was noticing here is that we were talking about Russian ballet dancers with these men. And I really think that Aliev is more of the Nureyev, and that Kolyada is more of the Baryshnikov, where Baryshnikov had the really strong, statuesque, masculine, broad chest. The limbs are kind of rock solid, and the artistry is from the technique, whereas Nureyev had technique, but he really broke all of the rules to be a little bit softer, more feminine,
in a way,
with his movement, and more artistic. And I think that Kolyada is giving you just like Russian machismo, you know, across the board. I really actually quite enjoy his Carmen. I think it's one of the best Carmens we've seen, especially for a man. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, he just needs to pull in on some of the jumps. You could tell the quad Lutz is right there for the taking. Like it's designed on the music. He just has to
be
go.
A moment. Yeah.
And I wonder, will they send him to Raphael for more time? Like, at what point does he just go for it? Because if he doesn't go for it now, are we going to put it into the Grand Prix? Because that gets risky when the Grand Prix final is on the line. But I think regardless, he to me looks like a top 3 man in the world this season.
Absolutely. In the short program, the minute he comes out in a totally different style, and the same thing I was talking about with Buchan, there is energy flying out of his fingertips, out of his solar plexus, like out of his blades. Like, it's incredible, and it gives you permission to let this person be the best one.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of sit back and you're like, oh, this is one we're supposed to watch. And sometimes in skating, like, it was interesting, like in Rudy Galindo's book back in the day, there are code words for like gay and straight. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you hear like, oh, the skating needs to be stronger. The skating needs to be more masculine. And it just makes me want to barf sometimes. But like this, to me, actually, all sexuality aside, the Carmen is the epitome of strong, masculine skating, in that beautiful images are hit, landing legs, positions, everything looks like a postcard.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's just incredible. Big sweeping edges and the stretch. I think there's no denying his skating ability now. And there's this moment in the footwork and you see the breeze blowing through his hair, and his chest is puffed out, and his like the edges are deep, and I was like, come on, this is skating.
He gives me young Russian Leonardo DiCaprio. Like, we could put him in a film or like some sort of a Netflix series.
Romeo and Juliet kissing you, but in Russian. Yeah.
I'm seeing like he could be a film star. In my mind, I would cast him. Like, he is fantastic.
And there was a vintage quality to it with all the spirals and the spread eagles. It was kind of like a classic in the way everything that Tarasova and Morozov aren't giving us, he is giving us in this. Now, unfortunately, there's like a loop of the Toreador that they keep like repeating for some reason because they were worried about the time. And you're like, oh, it sounds like the needle's stuck for like 5. And it was like, actually, you could just play a different part that would give you the same thing that would go through, instead of it being like, oh, we're doing this again, we're doing this again, we're doing this again. And it's like, oh my gosh, because the rest of the program, I think, is just, I'm a big fan. I think a lot of important stuff is happening for him, and the mindset and the focus is different from the get-go. He never would have been this clean at the end of the season, I fear, sometimes, and now he's been it twice at the beginning. So
the interesting thing is he did have some mistakes, but the judges rewarded him for the quad in the short program because of the body position and the height of that jump. There are some falls where it's being tilted the whole way. His quad, he was like, it was like perfect, and then he fell at the end. But you can look at how the trajectory of the jump and how good of a jump it was outside of the fall. And it was
literally just the landing, basically, as you broke it down so clearly. We're
going to do one on the falls because not every fall is the same. They are
not created equal.
No, and there are different rules about falls. So yes, a fall is a -5, but the judges have, and I checked with one of our Olympic judges, and the rules in 2186.
I keep thinking you're going to say 24601, like Les Mis. Okay. Okay.
In the rules, it can start from a +2. So, for a fall,
which
like
this absolutely did.
For a fall or an E or a double caret, you can only start. The highest you can start from is a +2. So the highest score you'd be able to get after the -5 is a -3. So, and they gave him -3s. Now, of course, you could say for any fall, for certain competitors you want to prop up, you can give them a -3. But I think there's more of an argument that a -3 or -4 could be appropriate.
This was a justifiable example of when things were beautiful until they weren't.
I'll do a whole video on it. We can break it down. People can debate it for the end of time. I thought that June is one of these skaters who is so close. He is on the cusp of being like a star. And it's just there's just like, you want a little more performance quality. It looked like his timing got a little off. And the one thing I keep thinking, though, is that Orser has been at all of these junior Grand Prix. And at what point is he just going to be in the rink at every single day with a skater like June? And, because obviously Brian has so much coaching charisma. He's able to bring that extra 2% out of someone like June, like Evgenia. And he's going to every junior Grand Prix. Does he really need to be at the event with Joseph Fan? Does he need to...
Right.
I mean, obviously, Steven Gogolev is kind of his baby, but, he's at everyone. Can Lee Barkel go to some of them? Can, we send Karen Preston? Because at a certain point, someone like June really is going to be the skater at the end of the day who's going to compete with Han Yu in about 2 years. He is kind of the one. You can look at it, and his technique, his improvement from last year to this year, his overall skating skills, he is the one that's really improving for the future. He's the one that I would really invest in, I think, going forward.
Oh, absolutely. So, and again, and what works for me a bit more is this modern Shaylin approach in that program versus kind of the more classical approach. It seems a bit put on him. But gosh, for him to have come out a second time really solidifies his place at the table this season. And it's just really enjoyable to watch, the modern program in particular.
Now, the spin at the end where he completely... missed the blade, just
less effective.
We're gonna blame that on the confetti. It looked, though, that he was getting a little his timing was a little off and that he was getting a little ahead of himself. By the fact that happened at the end.
Were you just bored by another Cinderella program?
I was bored by it. No. I'm sorry. There's oxygen going on here. But yeah, I just thought by the end of that program, it was just like, we were.
But subsequently, one of his other spins where he has the hop and the sit spin, it's like that. It's like Mao perfect with the music where he does that, and that was really enjoyable. And this kind of movement that he doesn't skate with rolled shoulders, but he can roll them so beautifully, like wings, when he's just moving and dancing. It's very cool.
I think if he worked with Shea every week, imagine what he could be by the end of the season. So that's
absolutely.
Or at least work with her more often. I think just the...
Is she based in Toronto?
Yeah, she's...
Oh, well, there you go.
She's near there. I think she's by the Granite Club, I think. But I think, at least she was. It'll be very curious to see what kind of happens with him over time, because he is really moving forward at a very quick rate.
Yeah.
I thought that his... the triple loop was a little lower than it could have been. It looked a little scary. You could tell like his jumps just need a little tweaking going forward, but the timing is right there to be extremely successful.
You know what would help the jumps? Remove the bedazzled nude gloves. Maybe that's what's doing.
So I think I hate the nude gloves, but I think
with the sparkle.
Obviously, that's for the spins, but it's just it's gross to look at. It's so, especially when the flesh doesn't match your natural flesh color. It's really a rough one.
It has a creepy vibe to it. Yeah, for sure.
There is a creepy vibe.
You're like,
flesh
nude
and
gloves.
skating when it doesn't match is really creepy looking, and I don't know. Why it's creepy looking, but perhaps someone can break this down for us. We're not calling him creepy, we're calling the glove creepy, by the way.
Correct.
Just pointing that out before.
Yeah.
But Aliev, go into it. I thought your boy was wonderful here. The only thing is that it just looked like his timing for his jumps was a little bit off. You know, the legs and the arms were not moving together. He can be a little bit of an under rotation king.
Whatever.
At times. Yes, but overall, just a stunning free skate. Go into it.
And it's like you say, like the Nureyev, I think that's an incredible thing, an incredible comparison, because I really do respond to both. But the thing about Kolyada is I'm looking with great admiration.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow.
You're appreciating, but you're not in the performance.
I'm not feeling, and I'm sorry, when I watched his programs yesterday, I like fell off the couch. I was like, oh my gosh. It's the way he moves. If you told any other skater, we're going to start and you're going to kind of like be running and you're going to go back and forth, you would be like, oh my gosh. Yet somehow he does it and he's like catching air and it's like an exquisite. The way he moves is just so, the opening leaps, like I melt when I watch him. And I'm listening, the people I'm staying with right now have a very incredible sound system, and watching these different competitions through their speakers and stuff, you realize which networks are actually piping in the sound in different ways. This goes to our dubbing kind of idea. This is so like an aside, like audiophile thing, but some of them pump the music instead of hearing what they hear in the arena. They are pumping the music directly into the broadcast and adding the sounds of the arena, the ice scrapes, the audience and stuff like that. And when I really had like speakers around me, I was like, oh, this makes a huge difference versus some of the broadcasts just have open mics in the arena. So that's why some of that music, like I think some of that violin music, when it seems really screechy, is probably because we're hearing it through the arena speakers being recorded instead of it going right in. But Aliev's stuff was really beautiful. He's just dancing, and I just love it. I wonder about his arm position in the, because we knew Nathan had kind of more open, and some are this, some are that, and his weren't quite consistent. Like Nathan was with his L shape was creating a consistent approach to the air position every time, and his seems a little more haphazard, a little less solidified, maybe.
Yes. And that's what I was talking about. He is a little bit loosey-goosey, which is what makes his overall skating so wonderful, but when he does go into the jump with the technique, the arms are not in a consistent place. And that's why sometimes the technique can work really well for him and sometimes not. Someone like Kolyada is kind of stronger. I think, is Kolyada probably a little shorter? And it just all works together in like a very muscular, athletic way. And Aliev is a little bit more finesse and technique, and rather than being as natural in terms of, you know, a rotational ability. So,
because you remember what Alina does right before every time she skates? She bangs her thighs,
yes,
or quads or whatever, and then she does that like turn in, you know, kind of thing with her arms. And he kind of did his own version of that, and yet he did it beautifully and soft with all this dimension that I was like, look how beautiful you move. But that's not what that's not the exercise, is it? Like, it's supposed to be the opposite of that. So,
if he were in an era where we could cheat jumps like Sarah Hughes and get away with it, he would be so much more successful. He would just, it would be so much less mental, and it would
it's so special. It's, and it's a different thing, like, you know, I used to love watching Jeremy just skate around, but you kind of knew what you were getting into. And unfortunately, Aliev is like getting a little bit, you can't really rely on some of these quads yet. But yet I really don't care. It does not detract from the performance for me, where sometimes like the Jeremy programs, the splats would take you so out of the beautiful stuff he was doing that you couldn't enjoy it.
Like in Japan.
But this one like what? Like in Japan. Like in Japan.
I mean, I think Tuktamysheva at this point of this competition, just to touch on the ladies, the triple axel, fantastic. She did turn out in both programs. The big thing about the free skate with Tuktamysheva is there's not a lot of changes of movement and choreography, and it starts to feel really long, especially with the music. I think the short is a better vehicle for her. The long, you know, she has a lot of flirtation, she has a lot of charisma and character, but the program, and I don't know, does she have a lot of back injuries? Because her upper spine does not move at all in relation to the music, which is part of
she can move the shoulder, but the actual back is kind of moving as one.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of a lot of the limitations in the choreography with her has to do a lot with her spine. And then you also see that she doesn't go for the layback, which is another hint that there's something's going on there in terms of injury.
And I wanted to ask you this, because now we talk about like when she does these big, exquisite Mission Lutzes with the great ride out and the landings are so nice. I mean, it's impressive that the triple axel is what it is, but it has basically been the same every time with this turnout situation. Do you cite this as like just not a checking situation? Because it is
she's
so
leaning in the air a
like,
little bit. What happens is she gets a little bit too straight up and down, and then the body starts to go like that in the air. You can watch her where, you know, there's a natural lean to a jump, and she starts to get a little bit straight up and down like a pencil, and then eventually you fall out. You know, like because the jump has an arc, so she starts.
She needs to let the momentum kind of bring her to that.
You want the momentum to bring you to the upright, and she's kind of falling outside of the circle towards the end. So that's kind of, you notice it happens with her in both things, but that's a tweak that she can get. She's done it before.
It's just unique because it's been the same 3-turn on one blade at the end of several of them now. So I was just like, oh, I'm intrigued. But why it's so consistently that specific version of it. Yeah.
Well, it also could be a while since she's competed it, you know, and it's so close.
It wasn't a criticism. No. It's just so clearly one thing that she is consistently doing on it for right now.
But the program is endless, unfortunately. It's just, it's really cute the first 2 minutes, and then it starts to be, okay, you know, a little more arm waving.
It seems improvised, but not in that it's spontaneous and fun, but that in it's kind of like, remember when Dick Button talked about Nicole Bobek's Evita program, where he was like, this just looks slapped together. Like, yes. It kind of has a bit of that vibe, because that thing can only sustain so much time. Yeah.
But let's move on. Important note.
Oh, quick note. Sorry, I keep interrupting. It's because I had too much coffee. The Trzymbayeva, best choice ever for her to go to Itiri. One has to give credit where credit is due. She has turned someone who was interesting, and you knew her because her mom used to pull focus, and now I was like, this girl is becoming a relevant skater again.
Yeah.
Like, this is working. It's solid. It's clean. I trust it. I think it's going places, and in a consistency I've never seen from her.
So she has stayed small, and the interesting thing with her is that sometimes with the Terry, the technique doesn't work when they grow. But I wonder with her if it's the opposite thing where she moved and they tried to rework the technique, and she wasn't a Terry skater, and that technique, now that she's back to what she was doing before, if that's why she's more successful. So,
and she is of the size that we know a Terry works and her team. Yeah, they know how to do that with a skater like that. So it seemed a smart move, and it's already paying off pretty big. I mean, this was a big win of that free. So
another Terry skater that was fantastic, Shcherbakova, doing the 2 quad lutzes. The thing I noticed there is that she does this program is not as relaxing to watch as her short program can be, or the lovely skate that she did last year to Dreamcatcher was. It has that forced where she's like really it looks like she's being forced to do almost gymnastics elements, with these quads. And I'm not sure, because she does kind of use the blade assist on the Lutz, if it's going to last over time. She's not the one that I'm putting my money on. But she is such a lovely skater. And extremely impressive. I mean, outscoring everyone this weekend.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. I
mean, what she can do, regardless of the tweaks, she's an amazing rotator in the air at the end of the day. So
and does not ignore the music as a result. We can question the choice of it, but
why don't they have these girls do quad loops if that's clearly like what they are so strong at? I know it's not as many points as the quad lutz, but I think that would be a jump that would withstand puberty.
They thrive on loops. It's 50 loops in a row, but I don't know if then sometimes if bringing that do you think that when people start to work on quads, it affects the triple version of that jump?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It can.
So maybe because they rely so heavily on that for the combos, they don't want to touch them.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
I think they're going for points. So that's kind of...
Yeah.
But I think that she looks like she is going to make a splash at Russian Nationals later this year. And then Zagitova in Japan. Now, this is interesting. She's done 2 clean longs in a row. The one thing I noticed with her is that if she stays this size, it will be successful. She looks at a little bit on the edge of her technique where she could get a little more height, use her legs more than her arms, but they've kind of settled it where she's hitting. She is right now at the edge of her ability. If everything stays, she should keep winning. The Carmen looked a little better here than it did last. She's getting a little bit more into the character. But her posture, like how we talked about Evgenia's posture, Evgenia can go up and down a lot, especially during her footwork. But what Zagitova does is she kind of leans forward a lot when she skates. And they actually emphasize it at parts during her Carmen to where they even use it in the 3rd minute to where they have her do a move like that.
Yeah,
because she's leaning so far forward anyway that they start doing choreography around the bad posture. So, I mean, it's working for her at the moment. I don't see anyone right now who's going to challenge her if she continues.
Have you been doing yoga, Dave? Your arms look very strong.
Actually, not as much as I should be. But
mine would still be like waving in the wind if I tried to demonstrate that.
So she should be more. It looks like it's, she's being quite successful. I think she will do very well in the Grand Prix moving forward. But and she is getting more into the character. It's just I believe she is capable of so much more aesthetically.
She is clearly, I appreciate her, and my some of my grievances about the programs or whatever have actually, in my opinion, very little to do with her.
Yeah.
So what I appreciate is she didn't have to do this. She could be pulling Alina like, well, maybe I'll come back, maybe I won't. She is committed to the sport. Mm-hmm. She's doing what she's told. She has great stamina. Her spins look incredible. The illusion spin, the position is very nice. Some of these things. when we were talking about your opening few moments, tell me what artistically I kind of need to know. Buchan, Aliyev, Kolyada. Amazing openings. I'm with you right there. Opening like 5-6 seconds are odd and choppy and kind of clumsy looking. Not because she's doing it clumsily. It just isn't the right thing for her to get started. So even if you revamped the first choreographic moments of those first few seconds, I will buy the PCS a little bit more, I think, if that happens. Because, and then there are certain parts like in the step sequences where she just kind of looks like she's stomping and she's like giving big smiles in the wrong parts of the music. But I think if guided properly, I don't think she can go wrong.
She can go to your Shaylin and get a more interesting piece of music.
She won't, but she should. Yeah.
It starts with the music for her, and then it's the Danny choreography with the music. It's juniorish rather than really senior lady, you know.
And she's capable. She's very capable of it, I think. And give her big ballet music where she hits strong beats. She knows how to hit those beats. That's what the combos are always so exciting, because she's able to consistently time them.
Tired of her doing ballet music? They're going to put her in the tutu again, Jonathan, if we do that. So
would you rather have a tutu or her punching, she doesn't punch, but the breaking glass in the Phantom of the Opera? I'd rather have a tutu, quite frankly.
Well, okay, let's move along to Kaori Sakamoto. The one thing I really noticed is she looks much better than her first outing. So Kaori has this like weird thing where she gets into the ice and she really kind of lets her body like droop and sink into the ice and hang. And it was really working for her throughout the program until the very end, when she started tripping and then had a hilarious moment during the choreographic sequence where it was just like...
it's like when they were like, wow, the ice is slippery, or you know what I mean? Like, oh, she's having some tough times here.
But overall, her jumps look much bigger than last year. The one thing is her Lutz toe.
And this way too.
Yeah. So I think there were some noted improvements there. To where Satoko, it looks like is she trying to fix things on the jumps, and it's just all going wrong almost every single jumping pass. Starting with the Saukau has been an issue with her at 2 competitions. I think that they need...
And do you see a change in the approach? This was one of those things that confused me. I loved Mao's performances in Vancouver so much. Then we knew she was readdressing her technique, redoing things, and everything kind of disintegrated. And you were like, why are you changing it? It seemed to be working, and now it's bad. And then all of a sudden, with time, it got better again. But with Satoko, I think we see a real limitation, as pointed out in your judging video for Plus GOE. There is no way she's ever going to get those marks. Yeah. She does not have height. She does not have length. She does not have, you know what I mean? And for it to now be regressing with kind of a wrap and like kind of everything seems askew, and I'm not quite sure why. If they've made changes, maybe you just have to be resigned to the fact that it's going to be a problem always. Go back to the way it was before, because at least it was consistent if under-rotated.
So the Saukau was an issue with her last year as well. She would often make mistakes and double it. And maybe that would be a thing where she would do better on like a double axel Euler triple cell. I wonder if there's something in the entrance that's confusing that. The thing is that the Lutz, it looks like, I think that this is up here at this point. She knows that she struggles with the Lutz, with the free leg, getting the leg back and not rushing it, because she can do kind of that technique with the blade assist and the rushing. I think that, it's clearly when she's missing it, you could tell that she's anticipating it instead of just letting it happen. And it was really, really a struggle in this performance, I think, with both the flip and the Lutz. I think overall, she's not a natural tango skater, but I actually do see improvement. I know that you are not a fan of the tango, but I have seen improvement in her actually doing this program. And the one thing I will notice about Satoko is that she's kind of the perfect student where, and you can tell why Tom Dixon loves her so much, because no matter if the jumps are falling, popping, whatever, she is on every single note of the music and commitment. Hitting she's giving it, and she's never off the music. She is on top of the beat every single step of that performance. She is hitting the nuances that are choreographed in and giving it more and more. And I think by the end of the season, if the jumps are more successful, we'll be like, wow, that wound up being a pretty nice program for Satoko. It's never going to be her best.
Yeah.
But
that's right. It will never be a signature because it fights, to me, what makes her special. And there are people who can kind of sell this more easily. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. I just love her skating. So it's always, I kind of like the asymmetry with the arm and the glove and thing. It kind of brings out, you're able to watch her arms in a different way and things like that. It just lacks some of the detail that I thought was so exciting from some of the other pieces. But
she has a lot of tango detail, I think, actually, with the music. I think it gets lost, especially in this weekend, it got lost to the mistakes. But there is a lot of nuance to the program that she is kind of starting to bring out. I think it'll stretch her as a performer. You know, like, we want these ladies to grow, but then when they do go for a program, we're like, oh, I don't know. I think if she commits to it for the full year, you will see a growth by the end of it. So,
do you think, like, with this perfectionist, always on top of the music, even the terminology you're using, like on top of, she's this, she's that, there's a grip, right?
Yeah.
She is going to make this skating so, and I mean, I'm just curious, if you loosen the grip, do the jumps seem less effort-filled? You know what I mean? Effortful. Like,
the jumps are clearly a struggle, and they're clearly nervous about them. So I think, regardless, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Satoko this season and how they move forward. You know, because she is...
And the judges tried. For her to be that close to Kaori, like... The judges really tried to help Satoko. It just wasn't. They couldn't.
Look, she beat Brady here. Brady having some mistakes, you know, under rotation, 2 foot, you know, jumps going on here. They really do still want to reward Satoko. And I think with the Americans, they have to be perfectly clean. Brady and Mariah both did good jobs here, but not perfect jobs. And especially for Brady, because she doesn't have... When you put her next to Satoko, she does not have the same skating skills. She does not have the same performance ability. It's growing.
Most don't. So it's understandable. But so what she does have is Brady can. Yeah. So if you don't bring that, you're really not bringing your best hand to the table. Yeah.
Yeah. And Maria was just really having a rough outing here, which makes me think Tuktamysheva is really making a case for herself to go to Worlds and Europeans this season, because Maria is struggling, really struggling.
And Japan Open, like, to me, if I were a skater, this would be an invite I wanted. You know, you're probably treated very well. I would imagine it pays very well.
It pays very well. We're going to get into Jeremy. So
okay. So it's one of those things also, even though we were looking at, you know, Japan, Europe, North America, we were really looking at the U.S. I mean, was this because of the Thank You Canada tour? Like, I was surprised they didn't try to invite Caitlin
to this event. Well, she's booked, so they may have tried to invite her. But Gabby Daleman was supposed to be at this event, and then she was not there, but then there was a drunk Instagram live video when she was supposed to be there. So... that was...
So there you go.
You know, that was not the best.
It would be an invitation I would take very seriously, because, I mean, I think...
That's why Mariah was here.
Yeah, it's a crowd that gets it. Yeah. I was surprised, actually, someone like Mariah wasn't even invited, because they blur lines between amateur and professional anyway. But, it was an intriguing ladies lineup.
Jason was there to perform an exhibition, and there's a show that always goes along with this competition. So... it's a big opportunity for someone like Jeremy Abbott, who doesn't get a ton of shows at this point in his professional career. And I wonder with Jeremy, he's such an artist, you know, he's going to motivate himself to a new long program here. And with someone like Jeremy, with the management of his career, knowing how tough this is going to be, you wonder. So someone like Jeremy doesn't get a ton of shows. Do you think that you would strategize to, like, I'm going to go out in Japan and I'm going to try to win this, or I'm going to try to skate really well so they love my skating and then they'll invite me back more and more and more? Whereas here, I bet he tried to do a new program, it looks like, and it looks like he tried to motivate himself with learning new choreography, but it looks like he never... I mean, if you're a professional skater and you're not in competition, you're never going to be able to motivate yourself to work as hard to get ready to compete one time, you know, throughout the season.
Against the likes of Shoma and Javier.
And
I mean, And Nathan and even Oda was pulling out some big technical feats. I mean, mind you, there were 20 minutes of like crossovers beforehand, a la Mirai, but like the technical content, he was clearly going to be where he was going to be. So then in that moment, do you just take a moment to do one of the most powerful programs you have ever given, a real statement piece choreographically, and I don't know, then shirk on the jumps, but give us something that's so epic in performance art that it's okay.
He looked more trained when we saw him in June, and he was just doing an exhibition. Here didn't look as trained here, but it's the same thing that happened last year and this year, and it's like, oh my goodness, does Japan invite certain skaters? Like, Johnny gets invited here, he's not going to be competitive. It seems very rigged for Japan to win every year. It just seems a little
fine.
Yeah, they're in no danger of losing this event. Unless it's
exactly.
Europe,
there's a reason there's no pairs and ice stands.
Exactly.
Like, let them have their team medal. Yeah.
This is, every year. It's designed, it, but I wonder if that hurts the motivation of certain skaters to get through if they just look at it as a paycheck. But, for this one, it just looked like Jeremy just looked untrained and just... it's interesting, when he knows that he can be the best, he often rises to the occasion, and it was a Gracie Gold moment here. It was not his best skate. He tweeted about it. He was really upset. It was still a nice program, not my favorite. He's in you can tell he's like very experimental, going to his dance classes. I think he'll be a really successful choreographer in about like 5 to 6 years. He'll be like really... But
that's what these things can be. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like... they can be experiments and sales pitches for your choreography. Yeah.
So, a rough skate there, but, Oda came and he just looked like, Takahashi is competing again. Maybe Oda should make a comeback with these performances. I mean, doing the YMCA number, it was... Look, he just hit that hip dun, 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 on the music. It was his moment.
It was very Mariah that won Four Continents to me. It was clearly like, he was like, okay, everything out the window. I'm going to focus. I'm going to land this quad triple combo. Mm-hmm. And then it was like nothing happened to the program. He landed it. And then he'd be like, okay, here's a 10-second moment. I'm now going to do the YMCA so it looks like I'm performing. And now I'm going to go to crossovers again. Yeah, that's right. But I mean, like the jump prep, it was almost funny because he would be like, I am artistic for these 5 seconds here, for these 10 seconds here, and for the rest of the minute, I'm stalking this jump. But he did it. He did it. It was very impressive.
Even his most successful performances, he gets by. He has a very charming personality and demeanor. So when he did the Chaplin, he would do the little posing section with the imaginary hat, and then he would stalk the jumps, and then he would come back.
And then turn off,
and then turn back on. And then when we made fun of like the Oda O face, because it was like he stalked the jumps for 3 minutes and then just came out and you were like, whoa, that was a lot of personality. So he's not changed in that, but just a charming man when he goes out and performs. And the best knees in the business. So
and great, and the beautiful body position in those jumps. It was really nice. So.
Yeah. Now, our friend Nathan is like having your hair situation going on here. It looks
I mean, I know mine is in a teenage weird growing out phase, so I hope it's not quite as bad as Nathan's. Like, Nathan's was really distracting. And again, I know it sounds silly to talk about that, but like, it's apparent. Like, it was actually visibly distracting from the skate. And that skate was tough to watch.
So I know Phil Hirsch is trying to, pause, don't criticize Yale. I just don't think that... I'm going to say it, Phil. I don't think it's working, him being at Yale. And there are a couple reasons. One, he looks like a rebellious type. A little bit Nathan's going to do what he wants. It looks like he's enjoying life. It looks like the mother was on the West Coast. I mean, he just didn't look as prepared for this competition as he should have been. And you could just see it on the jumps. And in the program, there looked to be less commitment to the choreography than we saw when he debuted it in the shows over the summer. It just looks like a quick deterioration.
The skating looked better in general over the summer, it would appear. Now, especially because, like, think about all that time at Yale, not training, and then this kind of trip, and then it's the first kind of program. You're up against everybody as if it's like a world championship final group, you know what I mean? Like, and the jet lag and all this sort of stuff. Like, it just was never going to go great.
So I remember Michelle Kwan starting to drop classes during her UCLA days. I would imagine that is what's going to happen here. And then I imagine, are we going to start dropping classes and then take a winter semester off and do summer classes? Well, they're going to have to change something or take time off. I mean, it does not look to be working. We'll give it more time, but of course, but this wasn't, well, but maybe he'll sort this out. This was kind of like, so this is where we're at. Okay. Yeah. I mean, Grand Prix is, it's not like sometimes when you look at some of the earlier competitions that you're like, but there's time, we see where this is going, but like, it's kind of upon us. We're starting very soon. This is like the greatest day of Raphael's life since the Olympics and the World Championships, because you have to see, like, he'll be like, see, you don't spend time with me and you see what happens. I don't know. Yeah. How Ralph can be about, you don't listen to me and you change your short program. Like, we have these problems.
That's what happens. Yeah, exactly.
That's what this felt like to me. It was a really rough performance.
And unfortunately, the program it wasn't a Sotoko situation. No. It definitely was not that. So.
Well, when Nathan misses 2 or 3 and 4 jumping passes, then it just starts to go to hell. So it just didn't look, the commitment to the choreography wasn't there towards the end. I didn't like the costume as much. I don't know what was going on with the shirt, the hair, when he turns it on and gets that haircut before the Olympics and before the important event, he looks so good, and this was just not
that time.
But he may need this before his time to have long hair and be a college student, and then
it's a part of growing up. And of course, that growing up process, we've seen it on skaters that will like stick it out and make it to their like mid-20s and beyond. This part then ultimately leads to an understanding of self and so much more earnest connection when they skate. But it's like, to skate through it, well, you're kind of sorting out who you are in a new place, in a new environment. You're a new personality. You are an Olympian that the kids around you know. Mm-hmm. And yet you're still trying to do it. I don't know. It'll be a lot of growth years, I think, personally ahead. And I don't know how that will translate for the skating and the time commitment.
And it's like, he's the world champion, but Hanyu didn't compete there, and he's still the Olympic champion. So there's so many expectations for him. It's kind of like a Lane Zayak 83 moment, where you're like, okay, he needs to get it back together.
Right.
So,
right.
And look, he's not that far off. He can get it back together probably pretty quickly. But Shoma Uno, it's a lovely program. But when I looked at the jumps from Lombardia for the short program, he really had a good performance for himself. This performance, when he starts to drop the hip and the bad habits they come in spades, and they do not stop. When he misses one jump, he starts to miss every jump in the program. And though he is lovely, and it's a lovely program, it starts to get really, really messy throughout. And that's kind of what I noticed here. It takes you out of the performance.
And this program, like, there's something it's the anti-Danny G, but like, and it was interesting, like, because when you were breaking down the GOE things and we were talking about steps before the jumps that were creative and unexpected, we seem to think that's such a benchmark now for all things IJS. And he really kind of decluttered, detransitioned, like, it really took a lot of that out. And in some ways it feels like it has room to breathe. And in other ways it feels empty, arguably by comparison to someone like Kolyada, who is not doing a cluttered program and is doing an expansive, I don't want to say posy, but creating beautiful pictures in less moves. Mm-hmm. And Shoma seemed empty to me a little bit this time, especially when the jumps weren't quite working.
So it's a minimalist modern approach, but when you start to have mistakes, it doesn't work. I mean, you have to skate it clean. I know Johnny used to say that about Schindler's List, that you have to be perfect to this music. Well, I think in this case, Shoma really does need to skate perfect to Moonlight Sonata. Otherwise, it's just a mess.
Right. It needs that to make it work. And I am all about austere, modern, clean. But there's a difference between non-cluttered and empty. Mm-hmm. And this time that line was a little bit blurred for me. Mm-hmm. So that was a bit tough.
And then what did you think of Javi? Do you think we'll see him at the Europeans after his performance here?
If he does, I would think he's going to go back to the drawing board. I mean, the fact that it was Man of La Mancha, like, clearly let me know where things were at. Mm-hmm. And he ekes out these landings that look like, like Ashley Kane's landing on the throws every time, that like super deep knee thing. They kind of both do that. But I mean, it was like, I did write, he's hotter than ever.
Hotter than ever. He's such a natural talent that you can tell that he probably did not train 1,000% for this.
And the audience couldn't have helped him anymore. They were like bringing that place down with the clapping. Holy cow.
But he pulled out more jumps than you would expect for someone who maybe hasn't trained 1,000% for this. You could still see him getting it together by Europeans, but you kind of see the reality now of when you're half competitive and half moving on, how difficult that is to be in that in-between stage and still want to go. Because Kolyada is not just going to let you...
And I was going to say, and even beyond Kolyada, we have some other Russians, Georgia, you know what I mean? Like
Aliev,
some people, I know. But even Morris, the Georgian skater, like if he hits, he might accidentally get some big points and kind of weed his way in, whereas really before, I mean, it was his to lose, but now there's more of a fight for it. And Javi seems to enjoy tours and shows and stuff, but he's so clearly gifted and so naturally physically talented that you could tell those quads. Sometimes, like, when I have to do a concert and I'm like, I don't even know the words, let's just see what happens. It's going to be kind of fun, just like throw it and see what sticks.
Listen, Jeremy, do not admit that. Okay.
But like, in a way, I wondered if Javi was like, well, let's see. I don't know. Let's see what happens. I know how to do.
So when you have a bad performance, do you apologize or do you pretend like no one saw it? Do you just like?
Well, the difference is that there's like a result in the competition where I mean, it's harder for that for me. I don't know. You're like, do you address it or just talking about it? I mean, the one time it happened, obviously, Dave. But like, do you address it or do you just kind of let it go because the more you talk about it, the more attention you're bringing to it? So I understand sometimes in those press conferences when people are like, well, why did it go wrong? Mm. I don't know. I was training well. I thought it was going to go okay, and it didn't. I don't know why. We'll have to think about why. So then I find some of this seemingly excuse making happens because they're being asked to come up with an answer. And how could they possibly have one? Yeah. What would Nathan say in a press conference after that? Be like, I don't know, I trained. I wanted this to go better. I'm sorry it wasn't.
I shouldn't have gone to that kegger, gone on a date with that girl. I've been enjoying the life.
Exactly.
I don't know. Like, what do you say? There is no like answer that someone likes. But yeah, it was interesting to me on the Junior Grand Prix that Tarankova. So had she not left Eteri would have swept the Junior Grand Prix thus far. It is the one because she went to Plushenko.
Right.
Does not have the sweep there. And do we really think Plushenko's the main coach? We really think he's kind of the figurehead, right? That there's just like there are two coaches listed for her. I'm very curious who is coaching every day.
Yeah, so. I mean, he's been doing the PR machine for her.
Yes.
He does in spades.
He's kind of the Nina Moser.
Yes, I think he's managing this girl. Let's see, you know what I mean? And that can be an important part because she's clearly very talented. So, so we'll see. It's lining up to be, again, a total killer Junior Grand Prix final. Mm-hmm. And that's when I'm really going to be excited to tune in.
Killer Junior Grand Prix final. And our ice dance team was just heaven here, winning. Obviously, they should have won the other event too. But Nguyen and... however worth the Kolesnik were just fantastic.
I know. I was like, I'm looking for the American team, but I was like, I don't see any like traditional names. I was like, oh right, it's
there's no Miller or Smith or Green.
Yeah, exactly. Jones. Yeah.
But I mean, really coming into their own and just such a lovely quality, and the rhythm dance was so strong here. So I think that they're the team that I'm really watching for the future right now in the U.S.
Yeah, huge potential. Yeah.
So, what was your moment of the week, Mr. Jonathan Byer? Obviously, so sad that Carolina had to pull out, but Buchan, yeah, I have to say,
Buchan's rhythm dance. I was like, get it,
For me, Buchan and that little unexpected YMCA hit moment for Oda, didn't know it was coming, and it was. Pleasant surprise.
How could one have been emotionally prepared for that?
Yes.
Every time I see him, I just think of him skating with the frying pan and the egg on it or
yes.
whatever. Do you remember that commercial? Yeah.
Well, as always, I want to remind you to hold an edge and look sexy. Bye, guys.